Hello everyone, welcome back to another Stories with Richi, and today we have our second part with Josh Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, Josh.
Thank you.
I I was in the part when you mentioned that you came to Salem, and for you it was very different coming to Salem from Seattle.
Yes, sir.
How was that different for you?
Coming to Corbin, seeing how friendly people are, I loved it because, I mean, being in ministry, I understood people were like that. But, man, getting here where they're like, yeah, my door's open, just come on in. Or, I was like, y'all ain't worried about nobody stealing. You're not worried about a lot of different elements like that because we don't do that. We lock our doors and everything in Tacoma. One thing I found really different was whenever I would dap people up or whatever, okay, that also I'll lead into how how I speak to people. But man, I would just be like, hey, stay safe, like stay up, and they'd be like, what are you talking about? Because at home, when you're watching people die left and right, especially people our own age, when we were 15, 16, 17, 18, till we moved out, we were watching people die left and right. No day was promised. It was craziness. So he was like, you know what, stay safe. And when I worked at McDonald's in Tacoma, I would tell people, like, stay safe, take care of yourself. And they all understood, like, yeah, yes, ma'am, or yes, sir. And they would leave. In Salem, it wasn't like that. The climate wasn't like that. So people were like, what do you mean, stay safe, stay up? And I was like, wow, this is a completely different place. Driving down the street, walking down the street at night, no worries. Maybe there's homeless people, but there's no worries. And I'll hit on a little bit about like watching homelessness in here versus Tacoma later. But at Corbin, people are just so bubbling over, sweet and nice. And man, city people are not like that. We are slick talkers. We are quick interactors. We are thick-skinned. We are very brash speaking. So like I usually talk like this. If I'm at home, I'm like this. I'm talking like this. That's how I talk. I'm like, okay, what do you mean? All right, go get it. Let's move. Because we're quick. Here it's very much slowed down. It's very
Different pace.
It is. It's much more laid back. When I first came down here, man, I was talking so fast. Like when I get really excited about something, I talk really fast. Still, I don't think that will ever leave because that's how I feel when I get passionate about stuff, and I don't want that to leave because that's how God has made me. But it was an adjustment coming down here because I talk super fast, and a lot of people here they didn't really talk super fast unless they were also we happen to be fast talkers. I grew up in, the city. So I would be talking 5,000 miles per hour, and they'd be like, I didn't get a word you said. And I was like, oh, I have to adjust that. I was talking really brash, like, man, I'd be like, I hate you, like, just as a joke. But people here would be like, oh, my gosh. And I'm like, no, I don't mean it. It's just, okay. And, like, my friends, the people I love the most, I pick on them the most because that's how I am, My friend Jay, my friends DJ, anybody, like I pick on them because I love them. And so people will see us in public, we'll be picking on each other, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, like there's a few times at Corbin, like people were emailed like Josh is bullying these people. And I was like, I promise I'm not. I'm just
You didn't understand where you come from and
that also taught me I need to be careful how I carry myself because city people are very much like IDGAF, like I don't care, I don't give a care because I'm gonna carry myself however I'm gonna get mine. But here it's like I realized I was like, man, the actions you do affect others. I started really learning that at Corbin, being around more sensitive people. And while sometimes it was definitely like, oh my gosh, okay, y'all need to get some thicker skin. A lot of the time though it was like, okay, let me learn how I can redistribute this energy or passion. So rather than me being so brash or aggressive, I can put this into finding out how to love people. And then I realized come sophomore year and actually COVID in junior year, how to love people the right way. Because you can love somebody, you can give them all the flowers they want. But if they're allergic to pollen, you're only hurting them. It's only causing them pain. You have to learn how to love on people the right way, the healthy ways. And this goes into relationships too, but I digress. Expanding from Corbin, Salem in general, just not as much stuff happening. I know they say like, oh, the city's going rampant when I listen to people in church and stuff talk about it. Well, not my home church, because my church down here, See the Faith Ministries, all of us are from Detroit, Chicago, Seattle, New York, different places, big cities, okay? So we're like, this ain't nothing, But in Salem, the number one thing I noticed when I came down here is Tacoma, as rough as it was, you never saw kids not outside. You never saw kids not at some park playing street ball, at some park hopscotch, whatever. You never didn't see that. As soon as the day was nice, as soon as school, like it was nice outside, you'd see kids all the time walking, backpacks on, basketballs in their hand, whatever. I was one of those kids. I'm walking, have shorts on, have sweats on over on the top of it, have a backpack, have a soccer ball in there, have a basketball, have a notebook, because if I wasn't playing basketball or out, kicking it, I was sitting at a park writing some songs, writing some music, or practicing something. So all the people at Corbin who have seen me sit out in the lobbies playing my guitar at random times of night and day, that's been a thing my whole life. I've been doing that since I was at home. My best way to connect with God for me is to get outside and just walk and just look at the creation that he's made on this earth and look at the beautiful people he's made and how he's wired all of us differently. It's honestly it's inspiring to step outside of your world and see those things and be like, man, God, you're dope. And so Salem, I didn't see that though. Okay. I didn't see a lot of people out walking, like kids walking like that. And it confused me. I was like, man, I didn't see a lot of boys and girls clubs here. Not a lot of YMCAs, not a lot of recreational centers where people could just go and hang out and just play basketball. I'm telling you, that's what kept a lot of us kids who did not turn to that gang violence stuff, and even kids who did and helped them get out of it. That was the stuff that kept us off the street and out of, death. I'm going to just say death, because a lot of kids who did that, they ended up dead. A good amount, two of my friends, three of them, one of them I've been friends with forever. They shot someone when they were 15 and it grazed their ear. They've been in prison from 2015. They'll get out 2030.
Wow.
15 years. Do you know how much we've gone through in the last 2 years? They've been in prison for all of it.
Wow.
They have gone to prison when they're 15. They're not going to get out till they're 30. That's huge. And so
I wonder, how did that affect you? Seeing friends killed, friends killing other people. How did that affect you?
It makes me sad because I love people and I'm a people person, and like the people around me are hurting, I am also hurting. So watching people around me just like dying and realizing it's just one of my friends, it's just like it doesn't sit right. Losing people is different. Every person you lose, it hits you in a different way, somehow, some way. I think in Tacoma, like watching our friends pass away was just like, it felt violating, because for years, kids have been trying to tell adults like, man, our mental health is suffering. And adults, a lot of the older adults in Tacoma, like, oh, you haven't been through what we've been through. We're paying the bills and putting the food on the table. You should be fine. You're just in school. And I think that puts an unprecedented pressure that's unnecessary on young people, that your life should be perfect simply because you have a parent or parents. And that's not true. Mental health and mental illness is still a thing, even if you have a white picket fence, 2 dogs, 2 families, 2 sisters, wake up every day with some pancakes on your table. At the end of the day, if you have anxiety, or if you have schizophrenia, if you have whatever, that's still a lingering issue in your mind, and that is still a mental illness that needs to be taken care of. Simply put, 2015, 2016, back then, different for a lot of you high schoolers now. They didn't know or care about mental health, really. And I'll tell you what happened at my Boys and Girls Club. I wasn't particularly close with him, but my friend, his name is Hollywood Giante. Love you, bro, if you see this. But one of his friends and other people's friends, his name was, we called him Chubbs, or they called him Chubbs. I didn't really know him too well, but he ended up committing suicide at 15, hung himself at 15. And that served a huge wake-up call to the community leaders who were like, man, these kids are not lying. They're not kidding. Something is off here. And then that led to the period of the rest of high school and middle school, where it was just like we were watching us go in lockdowns like every week because a school shooting threat or a bomb threat. I actually, side story, and I won't tell this full story because I know we're on a time crunch, but somebody was trying to make a bomb to bomb Life Christian Academy.
Wow.
To bomb the school I was at. And it was actually a Wednesday night. We had a church service, a youth service. I had to use the bathroom. The upstairs bathrooms happened to be locked. Oh, man, I gotta go downstairs, go to the janitor's closet. Long story short, and he was one of my friends growing up in elementary school, but he had mental disabilities that I won't disclose on here, obviously, but he was struggling, and it got worse and worse, and his parents didn't care, and the school didn't care because they wanted to keep their image. and he was making a bomb that was literally like this big in the janitor's closet.
Wow.
And I literally happened to catch him only because he talked to himself so loudly. And I was wondering who was talking to himself in the janitor's.
What was he saying?
Just like, I got to do that. Nobody understands me. Nobody, stuff like that and more. And I caught him. He's like, Josh, I need your help. Because I was probably one of the only people left who wasn't really bullying him like that. Like, because I knew his story, because I understood. He would have these meltdowns in class and stuff because there'd be stuff going on at home and kids would not understand it. And so they would laugh at it. There were times I'd be like, oh my gosh, not again, because I'm tired from stuff I have to see. But there was never really a day I was like, oh my God, this just overreact, blah, blah, blah. Because I understood that this is a real issue. And so that was a real tangible bomb threat that would have taken our school out. That would have taken our church out. It would have blown the whole thing up. And he was going to take it to school the next day. And I happened to be in the right place, right time. And it hurt me to even report him because I was like, man, like, this doesn't feel right, but I have to do it.
Yes.
Because this is huge, and so.
Wow. So you saved your school.
I would just say God put me in the right place at the right time, but yes. Amen. Yes.
Joshua, just to finish, there are a lot of youth. I'm glad that you are passionate to help youth. And a lot of parents that are, maybe their kids aren't listening. And I wonder what will be your advice to them and to the youth in the season where they are at?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to start with the young people first, all right? Because it's easy to be really hard on parents. We will never understand how much parents and leaders and people, and I've learned this since I've started walking in ministry and serving and stuff, we will never understand how much people pour into other people with the hopes that it works. And sometimes, unfortunately, it just doesn't, work. You can go to a really fun summer camp and the leaders put their all into the camp, program and the activities and games. And there will probably be kids who don't like it. And that's just the reality of everything here. Not everybody is going to like everything. I tell kids, you have to learn to give parents grace. You obviously absolutely hold them accountable. There's a limit to what you can do until you get old enough to move out and stuff. But you have to give your parents grace, and you have to understand that 9 times out of 10, every situation is different, but I had to find myself do this because I didn't want to be a person of unforgiveness and bitterness and holding stuff in, but I had to understand, like, okay, they tried their best, they're flawed, they're humans, but they gave us they did all they could. My dad worked like 80-hour weeks, so it's like you have to look at certain things and be like, they did what they could do and they gave their best and they fell short. And you have to live with grace and know that God still is redeeming you and also healing them in the process. Because if you don't, then you turn into a person of bitterness and unforgiveness. And that's some things I learned my freshman year and sophomore year when I finally left home and I was able to turn around and look at home and be like, man, some of this stuff was terrible. But guess what? I did some raggedy stuff too, okay? I did some dirty stuff too. There are interactions I should not have talked to my parents like that. Whereas I, laughed at people that shouldn't have been laughed at. And then when you watch people die, then your mindset snaps like that. And it quickly checks. And it shows you that the people you see to your left and right are not here forever. The places you see on this earth, this earth is temporary. Nothing is here forever. And so I think to the young people, I have to say, try your best to have grace with your parents. But also, if you find yourself struggling with something, you find a toxic flaw, it is never too early to start working on it. Because as I said in the first part, if you don't work on it now, and you pushing it away is not going to make it just go away. That's why counseling is huge for people our age in our 20s, because we had to fight to get out of the dirt, and now we're trying to figure out how to repair, ourselves and figure out the emotional damage we took trying to grow up, watching, different things from George Floyd to Mike Brown to Sandra, killings, different things, all kinds of different things. Even the nightclub shooting in Orlando, LGBTQ kids are finding ways to go to counseling and get through that. We can have whatever kind of view we want, but at the end of the day, they're still God's people, and we still have to find healing and find a way to, recover from those things, because that's trauma. And so I tell kids, it's never too early to start looking at those things and be like, man, how can I grow, or how can I,
get better?
And a lot of the people I walk with, I tell that to them, and I might probably sound like an old man, but you know what? once you turn 18, 19, a lot, especially to my seniors who graduated, it gets real now. It gets very real. And so I think that's what I would tell the kids.
What about the parents?
For the parents, show up for your kids. Believe your kids. Believe your kids and listen to them. The more you hang out with somebody, the more you do life with somebody, the more you understand how they tick a little bit and how they work. For example, if I hang out with Jay, my friend Jay, I'll say her for example because she won't care. But also, what's she gonna do? No, I'm playing. But see, like that, if I did that, someone would be like, oh my gosh. But Jay, I hanging out with her, and I watch, I pick on her like she's my little sister, but I know she has a limit. And I know that there's a limit or a boundary where it's like, okay, bro, leave me alone. You're picking on me too much. And everybody has that limit, right? Some limits are longer or thinner than others. It's the same thing with your kids. You know this by if you hang out with your kids, the more you hang out with them, the more you understand them. And I feel like a lot of times, especially in America, and especially in African American culture, I'll say for me, watching parents, when our kids hit 14, 15, it's like, oh, they're self-independent. They can, they're good. But it's like, no, you need to keep walking with your kid because if something happens, you need to understand your kid well enough to know this isn't him. This isn't what my child would do. And so, like when I told you we were struggling with mental health and adults and parents were like, no, just suck it up. You're fine. It's like, no, we're not. If you hung out with us for even a sliver of time, you would know things are not okay. We're watching people dying. We're walking past our friends who are literally starting drugs, kids committing suicide. Police, because police in Tacoma are crazy. I grew up watching a lot of police brutality too, that I won't get into, but that's another thing we watch as kids, and that's trauma. Those are things we watched when we were 14, 15, 16, growing up, and we move out and we're like, some of us moved to like Salem or somewhere like a farmer town. I'm like, this is nothing like home. And I look at home and I realize how bad it was. Like I realize how many things were bad. There's a lot of beauty that came out of the city. So I tell parents, not deviating from what your question was. Trust your kids, believe them first, and just listen to them. Please listen to your kids. It saves you so much because down the road, when you become an adult, FYI parents, you don't stop being a parent when your kid moves out or gets to be 18 and they're an adult. When you give birth to a child, when you decide to have a kid, you are committed for life. You are committed for life. Okay? You are committed for life. That means I don't care if they're 13 or 40 or 70. You are committed for life. You are still their parent. And so believe your kids and trust them because it's a terrible place to be to not be able to trust, to know your kids can't trust you, at a young age, but especially as an adult. It's a terrible thing. I have a lot of friends who they don't talk to their parents at all. I love my parents, but I was like, y'all, I gotta move because I need to love y'all from a distance for a little bit because this isn't for me. And so I did that. And my brother is also doing that, So there's a lot of things. And do what you can. Now that's another thing for kids. Like understand when you get older, your dynamic with your parents, and this is the same for parents too, your dynamic with your parents / with your kids changes when you get older and you grow up.
Yep.
Changes a lot. A lot. So yes, parents, just believe and see your kids. Make them feel seen. The biggest issue is that kids feel invisible. They feel like, I'm the only one going through this. And that's what the devil does. He isolates us and then takes us out one by one because he wants to isolate you and make you feel like nobody sees you. You're the only one going through this. You're the only person who's been going through this. Parents, you should always be the first. God's going to be the first to show up for us because we are all his children. But you better be that second person who always shows up for your kids. That's probably one of the most heartbreaking things. I take care of a lot of these high schoolers and their parents don't show up for them. You know how many times I've taken them home from work or I picked them up from work? The North Salem incident, right? There was a school shooting threat at North Salem High School 2 weeks ago. And I left work a little bit in the middle of my shift to go get two of my high schools that I really love and appreciate. Dulce's younger brother, she watches this because she probably will, AJ, and then also Roman. I went to go pick them up because I was like, there's no way I'm going to let you guys stay down there. And I'm not their parent by any means, and I don't want to be like that weird person like, oh, my God, they're my kids. But at the same time, I've been blessed to be in relationship and community with them. So if I can take care of them, if I have a car and I can go pick them up, I'm going to go get them before stuff gets crazy. Parents, you have to be that first line of defense, first line of taking care of your kids. That would be the advice I would give. See your kids, listen to them, and love them first before you question what they're doing. Because if you love on them and you question them, they shouldn't have a reason to keep anything from you. Shouldn't be a reason to. If that has to be your first response is to question your kids, probably a red flag, not just with them, but with you too. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for sharing this, Josh.
Yes,
and
sir.
our hope is to in the future collaborate some prayer time live that people can join us and that we can pray for all the social problems that we're seeing today.
Right.
And that we can make a difference.
Yes. Peace out, y'all.